So I screwed up at work, big time. Like enough for the boss to just sit there in silence and just stare at what I had done. And my mind is starting to flood with emotions, starting to come up with ways to defend myself, say that it's thanks to this or this BS reason, or start to really try to bend over backwards in an attempt to win back affection or approval. Even thinking of trying to blame him or blame some other external circumstance as to why what I did was such a big screw up. But what I chose to do instead was not that. So not defend, not blame another person, not bend over backwards. I decided to do nothing. Absolutely nothing. And it was the right move to make. And in this video, I'm going to tell you why. So I'm a developer in the Power Platform space. For those of you that don't know, that's a Microsoft platform that's used to build apps. So I work with enterprise clients, so real stakes. And that day, two things went wrong. I handled one pretty badly, and I would say I handled the other one much better. And I'm going to share with you some of the professional lessons that I learned from each of them. So the first mistake I made was when I was trying to get ahead of schedule, when I was trying to jump ahead. Now, the action itself is not what the issue was here, actually. And bear with me, I'll tell you what the issue is. So we're working with a backlog and a bunch of tickets, which was essentially a bunch of updates that we were going to put in. And ahead of the curve, I wanted to put those in. So that was also including pushing things to production. And I actually misheard, and the push to production was meant to be later that day, but I decided to do it in the morning. And I felt like I was on a roll. I was getting things done. I was going to push this in front of my parents, and they're going to be so proud of this project that I did. Instead, I was met with like caution and a bit of concern, because he's just like, whoa, don't do that now. I haven't even got cab approval yet. So instead of being met with the approval that I was chasing, I was met with concern. And so that's when my mind started to do a little bit of a trick on me. It almost felt like I was doing a good thing, but it was not rewarded, because I thought I was getting ahead of the curve, right? I thought I was pushing tickets along and saving us time and money. But actually, I would say that I was more so fishing for some sort of approval, and that I was frustrated with that outcome. So my mistake in this case was actually that I wanted that kind of outcome as a result of that action. I was more so putting weight on me. I wasn't doing more proactive stuff for the sake of, you say, for making the project easier, but I was actually using that as a way to get validation. And that was because when I received an unexpected reaction, that slight sense of frustration, or maybe greater sense of frustration that crept in afterwards, can only be explained because I wanted something out of it and I was wronged. I felt wronged when I didn't get it. Like I'm sure many of you who are developers or who are workers who are very proud of your work could definitely relate. Like these things are like our babies. You threaten these things and it threatens our entire families. But the thing is that it's just a piece of work. Technically, we don't even own it. It's the companies that own it. And the lessons you learn from making those things is something that can't be taken away. And that thing is really what's valuable in a lot of these experiences. And I was also so caught up in the moments that a lot of the time when he gave instructions, I was only half listening because I was thinking of visions of grandeur. I was thinking of ways that I could use this to uplift my profile. So the lessons I learned was to be present in those moments so that I can capture what's actually being said, and to not be so death grip on my work, because what's precious is not actually the work necessarily itself, but the lessons I actually learned in that work. And now the much bigger mistake number two, when I pushed my work into production, which was bugged out, didn't work. The only caveat that was lucky was that it wasn't sent to users yet. It was working in the user acceptance testing environment, but when I pushed it to production, it started not to work, of course. Many of you developers can look at that and go, yep, I've handled that BS before, but I have to be honest here. There was nuances in the system that I noticed in UAT that I forgot to document down that was jank, and it was prone to breaking. And there was weaknesses that I had overlooked as well. Hadn't flagged any of it, hadn't documented any of it before I pushed it to production. So I was essentially writing my own grave. So when I shipped this bomb into production, and my mentor had a look at it and did a few tests on it, when he saw it and I explained to him what happened, he essentially just looked at me like this. Now, I knew he had a lot of work in his backlog as well. He's managing a whole bunch of other teams. And he was also someone who I respected and who I actually have a very good relationship with, even as a friend. So I trusted this person, and it was a double whammy when I felt like I was inconveniencing someone I actually respected. So my Mr. Panic brain offered me two options. One, the defensiveness started to come in. I started to look for reasons, A, B, C, D, all of them. Some of them could be legit, some of them were not legit. It didn't matter. All the ammunition I could use to essentially shield myself from the onslaught that was to come, right? And option two was to bend over backwards, start expressing all the things that I did badly and how I shouldn't have done that, and that I'm such a piece of crap in some way. Hoping that that false display of being humble would win back approval in some way, as an employee, as a friend. You can think of it kind of like being in a court case where you're starting to build cases, you build your evidence, and ways to defend yourself, and then other ways to even offload the blame and externally look at someone else to target, or some other BS external thing that caused this thing to happen. So pretty much I presented him with like 2 blue pills, both of them which were a BS lie. And I was like, which one did I take? And in this case, I didn't actually offer him either of them. So what I did instead was remain silent. And this was torturous. It was like a really unnerving, slow freeze kind of silence, because I knew that what I did was something that caused inconvenience, and that he was trying to process this problem, and that every ounce of my body was feeling the anxiety. It was feeling the over-energizing in a bad way. Like it was heat that I needed to get off. But what I did was to sit there, because I know that he was sitting there and processing the information and trying to solutionize what we could do to solve the problem. And so I took myself out of me, thinking about me for the second there, and more about him. When he asked me questions, I answered those questions. I said, this is what I did, thinking that this would happen, but I didn't know this would happen. That's it. I didn't try to explain. I didn't try to bend over backwards. I didn't try to blame another. Just give him the facts and then cut the sentence off right there. And it was really hard to just sit there in silence and just wait for him to continue processing that information. When he looked like he finished up his processing, I just added a final note saying, I noticed some of this behavior before and I should have flagged it in production, but that was overlooked. I know that now going forward. And that's it. No defense case, no self-flagellation. Conversation progressed forward and stayed calm. Now, the reason why I believe this worked so well in my case, and I actually felt so good coming out of that, was that I was giving him space to process the information without offloading my emotional burdens onto him. Because we're in the space where we're trying to solve a problem here. That stuff actually can kind of get in the way when we're in this kind of mode. And if I had done that, he would have to try to solve the problem whilst trying to calm me down. Because if I was defensive, or if I was self-flagellating, or if I was trying to blame another person, I'm not actually helping with the problem solving. I'm just giving him a lot of more burden where he has to reassure me that everything is okay. If I did that as well, it's also a display of irresponsibility on my part, because there was things I could have done to help that process, but I didn't do them at the time. So it's just giving him a lot more baggage in the moment. But when I held back and gave him that space and gave him that really precious fuel of time to just process that and focus on the problem itself, and just giving him the facts and just helping him through that process, it just speeds everything up much faster. And that was what felt like a lot of competence. It wasn't like I had put so much validation to myself on this one moment, and I'm concerned with just getting this thing over the line without being confrontational and without being difficult. because both those options actually were terrible responses. Blaming, irresponsible, and actually a sign that you're not very secure with what you did and you were fishing for external validation in that way. The other one's actually the same. It just takes on a different kind of mask where you're over-apologetic and you're bending over backwards and you trick yourself into thinking that you're being humble, but actually you are just full on displaying how much you are uncomfortable with your performance and that you want them desperately to say to you that it wasn't your fault. And that actually you are saying to them, please reassure me that this is fine and that everything is going okay. Now, when something is or isn't your fault, regardless, that is not something that's going to help a coworker in any way. So to summarize that point nicely, when something happens and you feel these urges to either be like overly apologetic or overly demanding and blaming, this is something that I did that really helped me come out of that interaction and come out of that case feeling really, really good. It was try not to offload the emotional burden onto another person, even if something feels like it's your fault. Let the emotion kind of course through, let the panic or the anxiety kind of be in your body, you can feel it, and just let that course through instead of avoiding it, and just feel like, damn, that didn't make me look good at all. And that's okay. Everyone screws up, right? And the other person also completely understands that they screw up. And if they're being like, blaming you and giving you all this grief, and I've been on that side of the table before, that's actually an insecurity on their part. And they faced a similar problem that you are now. And they're choosing to be defensive and blaming. It's because they don't have that emotional reign. Now, the emotional reign is not that you suppress it, but that you let it take its course, but don't let it leak out of the body. Let it course through and just reassure yourself that it's actually okay. And that gives yourself time to process what's going on with you. And it also lets the other person kind of go through the problem and just give them the facts. The shorter you keep those responses, especially when they ask you questions, the better it actually looks. And the more the conversation can flow. So this is not like being emotionless or being unhealthily suppressive with the emotions, but being disciplined and healthy in letting the emotions kind of flow and helping you digest it in a way that you digest it and other people don't have to rectify it. And keeping the sentence and responses short, especially in those kind of situations, that just elaborate more on the situation without word vomiting or the chance of those emotions polluting the conversation and giving the other person more burden. So that day, I felt like I really did the right thing and that it's a much better way going forward in my professional development. I'll start applying that more often, and I might stuff that up every now and then, certainly so. I'm definitely not an immortal, but that is a lesson that I've learned during this week. And I hope that helps one of you guys as well. But what about you guys? What are some of the things that you guys experienced that I could also take away from that, or that other of my viewers can also learn from? Pop it down in the comments below. If you like that content and that helped you, give me a subscribe and like, and I'll see you guys in the next one.